Picture this. You're hurtling through the void at 17,500 miles per hour, your fuel gauge kissing empty. And the nearest gas pump is also plummeting through space at the same terrifying velocity. Now imagine the fuel you need is colder than the dark side of Pluto. Your tank swallows 1,200 tons, and a single spilled drop explodes into a crystalline cloud that could blind every sensor on your spacecraft. Welcome to the most audacious engineering challenge of our time, the one SpaceX must conquer not once, but 10 times in rapid succession to plant human boots back on lunar soil. The rocket equation is a tyrant that bows to no one, not even Elon Musk. SpaceX's Starship, a monument to human ambition standing 397 feet tall, taller than the Statue of Liberty including her pedestal, carries the mass equivalent of 40 blue whales in pure fuel. Yet here's the cosmic joke. By the time this Titan claws its way through Earth's atmosphere and into the black embrace of space, its tanks are gasping on fumes. 90% of those 1,200 tons of meticulously crafted propellant? Burned. Gone. Transformed into the invisible momentum that barely delivers this colossus to orbit. Let's ground this in human scale. The moon hangs 238,855 miles away, a distance so vast that every human who has ever lived could hold hands in a line and still not reach it. It's 1,000 times farther than the International Space Station, that bright dot you sometimes catch racing across the twilight sky. Asking Starship to reach the moon on its orbital dregs is like demanding your car drive from New York to Los Angeles on the fumes left after reaching the end of your driveway. When NASA awarded SpaceX the $2.89 billion Human Landing System contract in April 2021, they weren't just buying a rocket, they were betting on a revolution. The Apollo program's Saturn V solved this distance problem through elegant waste. 3 massive stages, each discarded like spent shell casings as it exhausted its purpose. But SpaceX proposed something that sounded simultaneously more sophisticated and more insane. They would refuel in space. The mathematics are merciless. Reaching orbit demands a change in velocity, what physicists call delta V, of 9.4 kilometers per second. That's 0 to 21,000 miles per hour in 8 minutes. But that's just the admission price to the space highway. The lunar transfer burn requires another 3.1 kilometers per second. Landing on the moon, add 2.4 kilometers per second more. The Tsiolkovsky rocket equation, that iron law discovered by a deaf Russian schoolteacher dreaming of the stars, reveals a crushing truth. Every additional mile per hour of speed requires exponentially more fuel. Carrying enough propellant for the entire journey from Earth's surface would demand a rocket so gargantuan it would collapse under its own aspirations. As Elon Musk admitted in a moment of unusual understatement during a 2022 presentation, it's a lot easier to get to orbit and then refuel than to try to carry all that propellant from the ground. Translation: we're going to build something humanity has never attempted. A gas station suspended in the infinite dark. The numbers alone could break your brain. NASA's official Artemis 3 mission architecture demands something that sounds like logistics from a fever dream. Between 5 and 10 separate rocket launches, all to fuel a single moonshot. Each tanker, a Starship variant stripped of all human comforts and optimized into a flying fuel bladder, must deliver its 100 to 150 ton payload of cryogenic propellant to a precise point in space where the moon-bound Starship circles Earth like a patient predator. Imagine orchestrating this. You have a 2-week window, maybe 3 if you're lucky, before physics plays its cruel hand. The liquid oxygen, held at minus 297 degrees Fahrenheit, and liquid methane, at minus 259 degrees, are constantly trying to boil away into useless gas. Every sunrise in orbit, and you get 16 of them every day, slams your spacecraft with 250-degree temperature swings. Your cryogenic fuel doesn't just sit there, It writhes, expands, contracts, and sublimes like a living thing desperate to escape its metal prison. Bill Nelson, NASA's administrator, spelled out the stakes to Congress in May 2024. This isn't just a fuel transfer. It's a precisely choreographed assault on the impossible, requiring a launch every 48 to 72 hours. For context, the entire global space industry managed 180 launches in all of 2022. SpaceX needs to match a month's worth of global capacity in under 2 weeks for a single mission. Two architectural philosophies wrestle for dominance. Plan A: direct ship-to-ship transfer, where each tanker performs its own high-stakes docking dance with the lunar Starship, pumps its liquid cargo across, and returns home empty. Plan B sounds like something from science fiction's wildest dreams. Construct a permanent orbital depot, a cosmic fuel reservoir that tankers fill over time, allowing the moonbound ship to dock once for a complete fill-up. Think of it as the difference between having food trucks chase you down the highway versus building an actual rest stop. SpaceX's March 2024 environmental filing with the FAA included a seemingly innocuous phrase that represents decades of dreaming: ship-to-ship propellant transfer demonstration missions. Those 7 words describe humanity's first attempt to move hundreds of tons of the most temperamental fluids known to engineering between 2 spacecraft, while both plummet around Earth at 5 miles per second. The demonstration, slated for 2025, will start modestly. Just 10 tons. A mere sip by Starship standards. But if it works, if those first drops of methane and oxygen flow successfully across the void, we'll have cracked open a door that leads directly to the stars. In the weightless realm of orbit, everyday physics becomes alien sorcery. Release a ball of water in space and it doesn't fall. It shivers, oscillates, and eventually forms a perfect sphere, held together by nothing but surface tension and stubbornness. This beautiful nightmare has haunted spacecraft designers since Yuri Gagarin first floated above his seat. The Soviets tried first, managing to transfer a few hundred kilograms of hypergolic fuel, the easy stuff that ignites on contact, to their Salyut and Mir stations. China recently demonstrated similar capabilities with Tiangong, but these were drops in an ocean compared to Starship's tsunami of cryogenic fury. We're talking about moving the liquid equivalent of an Olympic swimming pool between 2 structures, each the size of a 15-story building, while both perform an eternal freefall around Earth. SpaceX's solution reads like an engineer's poetry. Settling thrust. Fire the spacecraft's smaller thrusters just enough to create a ghost of gravity. A whisper of acceleration that convinces the floating fuel it has found a down direction. Too much thrust, and you waste precious propellant you're trying to save. Too little, and your million-dollar fuel becomes a useless cloud of metallic bubbles floating through your tanks like cosmic champagne. The temperature management alone would make a thermodynamics professor weep. Liquid oxygen must remain at -297 degrees Fahrenheit, cold enough to freeze nitrogen out of the air. Liquid methane sits at -259 degrees Fahrenheit. Meanwhile, the sun-facing side of your spacecraft bakes at 250 degrees Fahrenheit, while the shadowed side plunges to -250 degrees Fahrenheit. Every weld, every valve, every seal must withstand these temperature swings hundreds of times without cracking, leaking, or failing. NASA's 2023 study in the Journal of Spacecraft and Rockets identified a particularly nasty gremlin: ullage management. Ullage, the space above the liquid in your tank, fills with vapor that must be precisely controlled. Get it wrong by even 1%, and you've created conditions for vapor lock, where gas bubbles block liquid flow like cholesterol in a fuel line. At Starship scale, that 1% error costs you 12 tons of propellant, enough to be the difference between landing on the moon and becoming a permanent monument to failure in lunar orbit. Garrett Reisman, who rode rockets to space as a NASA astronaut and now guides SpaceX through these challenges, painted the picture perfectly on a 2024 podcast. Imagine pouring honey between two fish bowls while both tumble through space. Now make those fish bowls 50 meters tall, and the honey is desperately trying to boil away into nothing. Every drop we successfully transfer is a small miracle of engineering. Two metal giants converge in the infinite black, each the height of a Chicago skyscraper, each massing more than a fully loaded Airbus A380. They approach with the delicate precision of a hummingbird landing on a flower, if that flower was also a hummingbird, and both were falling around Earth fast enough to circle the planet in 90 minutes. The approach phase would terrify any pilot who understood the physics. From miles apart, the ships close at several meters per second, walking speed. As they near, that rate drops to 1 meter per second, then a tenth of that, then less. NASA calls the final approach zone the keep out sphere, a region where any mistake transforms two magnificent machines into a cloud of very expensive debris. SpaceX's autonomous docking system, the descendant of Dragon's proven technology that has kissed the International Space Station dozens of times, must handle this entire sequence without human intervention. At orbital velocities, the time between that looks wrong and catastrophic failure is measured in heartbeats. The system must process thousands of measurements per second. Distance, approach rate, angular alignment, structural loads, temperature differentials, and a dozen other parameters that could spell disaster if ignored. The docking mechanism itself, still shrouded in SpaceX's characteristic secrecy, must accomplish something unprecedented. Where Dragon gently delivers a few tons of supplies to the ISS, this mechanism must mate two giants firmly enough to transfer the weight of 100 cars worth of liquid between them, maintain a perfect seal in the vacuum of space, and then separate cleanly for the next tanker. One engineer familiar with the project likened it to designing a garden hose coupling that could fuel a battleship while both are in a hurricane. Jonathan McDowell, the Harvard astrophysicist who tracks every object humanity has placed in orbit, delivered a sobering assessment in 2024. A collision between two fully fueled starships wouldn't just end the mission. It would create one of the largest debris fields in spaceflight history, potentially closing that orbital altitude to safe navigation for decades. Yet SpaceX marches forward with methodical confidence. The 2025 demonstration will start small, just 10 tons of propellant, barely a shot glass by Starship standards. But if those first precious gallons flow successfully between ships, if the valves seal and the temperatures hold, and the settling thrust works and 1,000 other things go right, we'll have proven something magnificent. That the void between Earth and Moon doesn't have to be a desert. We can build oases there, waypoints of fuel and possibility that transform space from a destination to a highway. What began as an impossible physics problem, how to haul enough fuel to reach the Moon in a reusable spacecraft, has metamorphosed into humanity's next evolutionary leap. SpaceX isn't just solving a lunar logistics challenge. They're laying the first sections of an interplanetary highway system that could define the next 1,000 years of human civilization. The ripples spread far beyond Artemis. NASA's own analysis reveals that orbital refueling could slash Mars mission costs by 60%. The European Space Agency has begun sketching spacecraft designed around the assumption that orbital fuel stops will exist. The Pentagon, in Space Force documents stamped Strategic Planning 2024, describes orbital refueling capability as critical to maintaining American celestial superiority. This single innovation transforms the Moon from a feat requiring the focused resources of superpowers into a commute requiring merely patience and preparation. When that first successful transfer occurs, currently targeting mid-2025 according to FAA filings, it won't simply check a box on NASA's Artemis timeline. It will mark the moment our species began constructing genuine infrastructure beyond Earth's atmosphere, the moment we stopped visiting space and started inhabiting it. The orbital gas station we build today isn't just plumbing for a moon mission. It's the cornerstone of humanity's cosmic cathedral. the first permanent fixture in a transportation network that could carry our descendants to worlds we can barely imagine. Soon, the question won't be whether we can reach other worlds, but simply how many times we're willing to stop for gas along the infinite highway. If you enjoyed this story, hit subscribe for more stories where history, technology, and human ambition collide. Thanks for watching.